what's going on, everybody? My name is Corey, better known as the Seaman, and I want to welcome you to another edition of the Seaman's Cinema Sit Down. I got one more for you on this very, very long Wednesday for me. If you guys follow me, you know I started my day with What If at 3 in the morning. And since then, I've been trying to catch up on all the movies and things that I have seen that I haven't had a chance to talk about. We just finished talking about The Protege, one of my favorite action movies of the year. Oh, is Maggie Q so freaking good? And Mr. Michael Keaton, look out, man. That old man Batman, he's going to be bringing some heat if he does anything like he did in that movie. If you want to see all my thoughts on The Protege, you can check it out right up there. But now, it's time to shift gears. Oh, and we shifting gears big, man. Like, we went from, Marvel to, action stuff. We're moving to the realm of horror, my favorite realm. But an even more minute piece of the horror realm is that slow burn horror. It is so difficult to land a slow burn horror. It's difficult to land a slow burn movie in general because a lot of audiences are not gonna stick with it if it burns too slow. But if you can hit a slow burn right, specifically in the world of horror, oh, can you just set yourself up for big time things? And that's exactly what David Bruckner does with this slow burn psychological horror thriller. I'd probably put it more in suspense thriller than horror, but it definitely belongs in both, so we'll put it in all of them, man. This is a slow burn suspense horror thriller that it just did all the things that I look for in a good horror thriller. What am I talking about? Why don't you pull up a chair, take a seat. We're getting ready to dive in spoiler-free into The Night House. And, oh, man. This is one of those movies that, I walked out and I was just beaming. Because I had heard about this movie because Rebecca Hall was in it. I love Rebecca Hall. And I had the trailer teed up to watch. And then just in some of my catch-ups coming out of COVID and other things going on just in my general life, I never got around to it. And I just opted not to watch it. I was like, Rebecca Hall is in a horror movie that, it's got pretty good buzz around it. I'm totally game. I'll go watch anything that she does. And if I'm being honest with you, I'm glad I didn't know anything about this movie or hadn't seen anything about this movie going in. If you are unfamiliar, the premise is pretty on the surface, right? You have Rebecca Hall, whose character named Beth, lives at this lake house with her husband. They've been married for 14 years, and on one random Thursday, he just decides to get up and blow his brains out. And that's where we pick up. We pick up, her coming back from that funeral. And you then are thrown into this, kind of like haunted house type story. It's definitely in that genre, and it does all the things that you look for in that type of a movie. But this is a movie that, is someone battling and dealing with grief and loss and depression, and how all of those things can kind of come together to create scenarios and situations that we see in this movie that make you go, is this in her head or is this real? And it's one of those things where this movie, not knowing a ton going in, ended up hitting for me the way Relic did last year. And I think this is it's better executed in the realm of horror than what Relic did, but very similarly, it uses the genre and executes on those genre points quite well, but uses it to tell a more impactful and intimate story. And if you are a person who has ever dealt with depression or loss or grief, and that probably hits most people, there are things in this movie that will hit for you because of how well it is laid out. And kudos goes to writers Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski, who are on the screenplay. Excellent. The writing in this movie is phenomenal. And that's one of the other things. If you're going to have a slow burn, you need a story that is going to grip you, pull you in, and get you emotionally invested. And what Collins and Piotrowski do with this screenplay is exactly that. They set you up right out the gate to be like, oh, shoot, what? If you didn't know coming in that this was going to be about her husband's death, you're like, oh no, man. And just the way that Hall, and we'll get to her, but so much of the movie and the fact that it works comes from her performance. But what Collins and Piotrowski do from the writing standpoint is just elevated by Hall's performance and by Bruckner's directing, and that combination of things get you hooked and emotionally invested in this woman right away. And it has to do with how she's dealing with her grief, the things that were going on in her life, and the mystery behind the death of her husband. Like, it's one of these where a lot of people who end up dealing with suicide go, I never saw it coming. So she kind of has to go through that mystery. You just set yourselves up for things that work and that keep you invested in the story. Like, as the slow burn is happening, you can only go so far with that first part of the story and mixing in the horror. Adding the extra mystery that Hall is trying to uncover as she goes is what keeps you actively engaged with the movie, no matter how slow it's going. And from the director's standpoint, Bruckner does an excellent job behind the camera. I mean, cinematically, this thing looks really nice. Like, he does things and puts the camera in places that amplify whatever is about to come. And the atmospheric horror is really where the horror in this comes from. I think more of it is a slow burn thriller, but the atmospherics, holy cow. And some of the camera tricks that he plays with negative space are mind-blowing. Now, some of it is obviously visual effects, because there are things that couldn't happen unless it was visual effects, but you'll see things happen, right? Where it's like you're looking into some negative space and you think you see something, and then something will happen that'll confirm you're like, oh, okay, it's there. But then the camera will move and you're like, wait, was it there ever? Like, the negative space and the architecture play into some of these visual effect tricks that they pull that are just mind-blowing. Like, mind-blowing. I wish I could tell you exactly what it... But, there are gonna be, 5 moments in the movie where they do the same thing. But every time they do it, it's a little bit different. And how he plays with negative space and just where he puts the camera and how he moves the camera. Something else that keeps you actively engaged. And the pacing is perfect. Like I said, slow burn movies are so hard to pull off because you have to keep that pace going, but you also need it to move slow enough so that you can set up and reveal the things where you need them to hit. And the pacing in this movie is flawless. If you are a fan of slow burn movies, you will sit in the theater and you'll never think about the fact that it's a slow burn. When you come out of it, you'll go, oh man, dude, they really kind of slow burn you through this movie, and it really, really works. Now, if you're not a slow burn person, I think that Bruckner and Collins and Piotrowski and Hall do enough to keep you actively engaged, but if you're not a slow burn person, this movie might not hit for you. Even though I think that Bruckner does a wonderful job with the pacing of that slow burn. Now, all of that technical stuff, and including the score. The score is another one where it's I didn't necessarily feel like there were moments that jumped out where I was like, oh, this score is phenomenal, but it was rock solid. And sometimes a rock solid score can kind of go unnoticed because it is just amplifying and doing all the things that it needs to do and doesn't need to do more than that. And that sometimes is totally okay in my book. And the score here does just that. It plays where it's I don't need the score to overpower what's happening on screen. But you need it to hit to get some of the jump scares. There's about 4 times in this movie that I jumped. And this is not a jump scare horror movie. Like I said, it's a slow-burn psychological thriller. But there are 4 moments where I straight up jumped. And you want to talk about a movie that builds in a way that constantly keeps you on the edge of your seat. Once you get that first jump scare in and you know the type of movie the whole movie, you're just shit, man. When it's something bad's coming. Something bad's coming. I'm not ready for it. And you're actively concerned about Beth the whole movie, and that so much of that has to do with Rebecca Hall. But before we get there, the jump scares were excellent, and after the first one, like I said, I was on edge. And there was a 1-2 punch combo at one point about midway through the movie where you get and you're and then you just as you're about to settle back in, they get you one more time, and I legitimately jumped out my seat. The people behind me started laughing. I was like, yo, I ain't get you guys. Damn. I wasn't ready for that, especially in this kind of movie. And that's another one of those things that actively kept me engaged. But the true reason that this movie works so well, Bruckner could deliver from the technical standpoint, Collins and Piotrowski could deliver from the writing standpoint, but this is a movie where if you don't have a lead that can not just carry your movie, but literally knock it out of the ballpark every time she's on screen. And she's literally on screen the whole movie. It's just home run after home run after home run. Rebecca Hall, holy cow, man, this is one of the best things I think I've ever seen Rebecca Hall do. The fact that this movie is so on her shoulders. Like, there are other characters that pop up. Vondi Curtis Hall, who plays her neighbor Mel, fantastic anytime he pops up. Sarah Goldberg was a huge pop for me. Plays like her best friend Claire that she works with at the school that she works at. Wow, like, there's not a ton for Goldberg or for Vondi Curtis Hall to do, but when they're asked to do things, man, do they pop. And Goldberg specifically just gets some really big moments that she knocks out the ballpark and is just used to support Rebecca Hall and elevate what she is doing. And like I said, outside of like a couple other, people who pop in and here and there, I mean, Evan Jean-Guillet plays her husband Owen. He gets moments in the movie. Stacey Martin plays a character who works at a bookstore that pops up along the way. Everybody that pops in does well. But this movie is all about Hall. And like I said, she gives a career performance here. I mean, just from what she is asked to do from an emotional standpoint, like, Beth is someone who is already dealing with dark thoughts as just a person. Like, that's something that is inherent to her character. Now you're adding in the grief and the loss and the pain and, the confusion and, like, everything else that's going on with her emotionally just feeds into the depression and the dark places that she can go. Like, that emotional connection is there the whole movie, but then all of those emotions also feed into the physical performance. And wow, dude, like, this is one of those movies where Hall is just willing to go wherever the character needs to go. And if that means that she's got to, like, contort her body around or put herself in these interesting physical, like, places. I mean, there's a point, man, where she's just, like, kind of sitting slumped. And you're like, I don't know what's going on. I mean, obviously we know what's going on because of what's happening in the movie. But, like, just the way that her posture sits certain times. Like, you can take so much away from it. Like, this is a movie where you could eliminate the dialogue. And I think a lot of the emotional impact of the film would still hit because it's so apparent in literally everything Rebecca Hall does. And like I said, just the story that they put Beth on, you're so actively engaged and you're so actively invested in that character that, like, I'm sitting there going, one, I'm just scared because you think, like, as she's uncovering things, you're like, they're laying the groundwork for something bad to happen to this character. But at the same time, you're also, like, just so fascinated by the story and wanting to see, like, her figure it out so that we can understand what's going on, yet also simultaneously terrified just for her as a person based on what she finds out. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that, like, because of where she is mentally, you don't know if everything that's happening to her is actually happening to her. Like, is it in her head? Are there actual, spirits and things playing to her? And how all of that just ties into what the through line story through the whole thing and what the mystery reveal all ends up being. Wow, dude. Like, just wow. And like I said, much like Relic, when you get to the third act of this movie and what is happening finally clicks all the way in, like, there is a final scene that is a conversation. This is something I never saw coming in this movie and had me weeping like a baby. I know I cry a lot, but, like, this finale, like, this sequence toward the end of the movie and this conversation that happens, it is so impactful. And like I said, if you're a person that has ever dealt with, like, depression or grief or just dark thoughts, I won't say anything, but wow, like, if you don't walk away from that scene with tears rolling down your face, I feel bad for you, to be honest. Like, it was, I never saw that scene coming, and the way that it plays and the characters that are involved, like, it was such a clever magic trick from a writing standpoint. Like, that was the put the cherry on top of this ice cream sundae and just knock this thing out. I could not ask for anything more from this movie. I loved it, start to finish. I'm rambling because I don't know where to go next, so I'm going to stop talking And if I'm going to stop talking, it means it's time for a score, and I think I'm ready to get that. So why don't we get the old C-Maniacs up? There they are. Let's go into this movie. Like I said, you get phenomenal direction from director David Bruckner. You get a phenomenal script from Ben Collins and Luke Piotrowski that operates on multiple levels, both from horror to personal, emotional things to just struggles that people in general go through. Like, the layers of the script were just fantastic, and how that amplified and set Bruckner up to do phenomenal things in a slow burn movie was just wonderful to watch. And then Rebecca Hall, just wow, dude! It's one of those performances where I know the horror genre gets no love come award season, and I mean we've seen this with Toni Collette following Hereditary. But, this woman deserves to be nominated for an Oscar for the performance that she puts in. And the supporting cast that comes around her and because of what Hall's bringing, they bring their best. And it just turns out something that, for me, the horror, the atmospherics all work, and it tells a deep, intimate, personal story that's very, very impactful. This thing is flawless for me, man. 5 out of 5 C-Maniacs. You knew I was going there. Come on, man. I just, wow. I walked out of the theater and said out loud to myself, wow. Wow. So that's it, man. 5 out of 5 C-Maniacs. That's as good as you can get, and that's all I'm going to say about The Night House. Now it's your turn. Have you had a chance to check out The Night House? It is only in theaters, so if you've gone out to the theater, if you're a horror fan, what did this movie do for you? Like I said, this thing functions on so many levels. If you saw Relic, did this kind of give you similar vibes in how you can take a piece of genre and play into all the things that you need to execute to make that genre, story hit, but then also tell something that's deeper and more impactful and more personal? Did you take away any of that from The Night House? Was this just an atmospheric horror thriller that worked for you? Or was this a movie that didn't work? Anything that you're thinking. If you haven't seen it, are you enticed? Is this something that's up your alley? Are you a horror fan? Are you a Rebecca Hall fan? Heck, if you're not a horror fan, I warn you, you might get some jumps. But if you're a Rebecca Hall fan, you should totally watch this movie, because I'm telling you, it's one of her best performances of all time. So anything you guys got to say about The Night House, good, bad, indifferent, goes down below in the comments section. Look forward to talking to you down there. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you're new, you want to come hang out with the C-Man, anytime. We're talking movies, TV, trailer reactions. We got a couple more reviews coming up in the next day or two on other things that I've watched. We've got new stuff already starting to drop tomorrow. I'm trying to keep up with all of it, but if you haven't yet and you want to be here for that ride, you want to show a little love and support because you enjoy what I do over here on the Cinema Sit-Down, well then hey, come join C-Maniac Nation. Real easy. All you gotta do is jump over there, hit that subscribe button, hit that little bell if you want those alerts. Until next time, for the C-Mans, Cinema Sit-Down. I've been the C-Man, I'm signing off. Peace. Oh, hey, what's going on? You must be sticking around because you're looking for more content featuring this guy. Well, guess what? You're in the right place. You can check out more videos right here and right here. And if you have and you want to come join that C-Maniac Nation, you can hit that subscribe right over there.